Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Gary. It was the weekend, and Heather, my wife, was away at some family gathering, something I was supposed to attend. But truth be told, I just wasn't in the mood. I had a rough week at work, so I needed a break badly. I decided to stay home, catch up on some personal stuff, and hopefully recharge a little. I spent the Saturday afternoon in our shared bedroom, just lying there on the bed. I had my laptop open, sorting through a few emails that had piled up. And while I was going through a particular email, I realized I needed a pen. But the one I had been using had stopped working because the ink had dried up and I couldn't write a thing with it. I could have gotten up and walked to the desk, but the idea of doing that seemed like more effort than I was willing to put in at that moment. Instead, I started scanning around, trying to see if I had a spare pen lying around somewhere close by. The drawer on my side of the bed was the first place I checked, but as luck would have it, it was empty. Nothing but old receipts and some random pieces of paper. I thought maybe I'd find something better in Heather's side of the bed. It was filled with bits and pieces of her personal things. She always kept her drawer neat and organized. I never really bothered with her drawer before, but that day, my pen situation had me desperate. So I slid open the drawer on her side and checked through things. There was a box of condoms, buried under a stack of papers, almost hidden. I can't tell you how confused I was. Heather and I never used protection. Not in 8 years of marriage. It was always understood between us. No need to talk about it. I checked the box. It was partially open, and one of the condoms was missing. That set my brain into overdrive, trying to figure out how to make sense of it. I just sat there wondering why she would have this here. I mean, we haven't been intimate in a while. Things had been distant between us, and I couldn't put my finger on why. We were kind of in a dry spell, emotionally and physically. That's when the reality hit me. Something wasn't adding up. Maybe she was hiding something. Maybe I had missed something. But the thought that came to my mind first and foremost was that she had been cheating. I didn't want to believe it, but that's what the box represented to me. There I was, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the box of condoms. This wasn't something that could be easily ignored. There was a good chance Heather had been hiding something. Was she cheating on me? Had she been seeing someone else? The worst part was that I wasn't even sure what to do with this information. How could I prove anything? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but how else could I make sense of this? I couldn't confront her without proof. I had learned that lesson the hard way years ago when I thought she was having something with her ex. I had been wrong then. I wasn't going to make the same mistake again. So for the rest of the night, I was playing out scenarios in my mind, wondering if I was reading too much into it. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like my suspicions were right. I needed to find out the truth. The first thing I did was snap a photo of the condoms in the pack. After the photo, I carefully placed the box back in the drawer, just as I had found it. I wasn't stupid enough to mess up and tip her off. She couldn't know that I had discovered it yet. By the next day, I went out to Walmart and picked up a few hidden small cameras. I had to be careful where I placed them. I also grabbed a GPS tracker for Heather's car. If she was sneaking around, I had to track where she was going. I didn't want to make any assumptions. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Back home, I didn't waste any time. I started setting up the cameras in all the spots I knew Heather frequented. I made sure to hide them well, just enough that she wouldn't ever notice. After all, the whole point was for her to walk into the trap without knowing it. Once the cameras were set, I planned to place the GPS tracker in her car, so I waited for her to come home. When Heather walked in that evening, everything seemed normal. I didn't let on that anything had changed. No sudden shifts in my mood. We talked like usual, though I was really just watching her. She told me all about her family gathering, everything from the drama to the small talk. I listened, and it almost made me second-guess everything I had set up. Was I being paranoid? Was I seeing things that weren't there? She didn't sound like someone who was hiding a secret. But then, I wasn't just going to ignore what I'd seen. If anything, this conversation made me more determined to keep going. I couldn't let myself backtrack now. So, we had dinner like we always did. I nodded as she spoke, pretending to be engaged. Every word she said, Every gesture I was dissecting. And yet, she didn't give me any reason to doubt her in that moment. She seemed completely at ease. That night, I went to bed, but my mind was far from calm. If something was going on, I would find out soon enough. For the next month, I kept a close eye on everything. Every day, I'd check the footage from the hidden cameras and track Heather's movements through the GPS I'd secretly installed on her car. But every time I checked, everything seemed fine. She was going to the same places she always said she was: work, the grocery store, or out with her friends. There were no late-night rendezvous, no unexpected detours. The footage from the cameras showed nothing out of the ordinary. It was just her walking around the house, sometimes reading, sometimes cooking. Nothing that screamed cheating. It felt like my mind was playing tricks on me. I had to remind myself that I'd been through a tough few months emotionally, and my judgment might be clouded. Seeing the same boring footage day after day didn't make it any easier. It was as if I were trapped in this cycle of doubt and hope. On one hand, I wanted to believe her. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the image of that box of condoms buried in her drawer. By the end of the second month, I started wondering if I'd made a mistake. I found myself asking if I had overanalyzed the situation. It's easy to lose yourself in that kind of doubt, especially when everything seems to be so normal on the surface. Every check was leading me to believe she was where she said she was, doing what she said she was doing. By the third month, I found myself checking the cameras less and less. I was getting tired of watching. A part of me wanted to believe that everything was okay, that she wasn't cheating. I started convincing myself that my suspicions were unfounded, that maybe I'd let my mind run wild with no reason at all. It felt like the calm before the storm, but I didn't know if the storm would ever come. This time of silence felt almost like a return to normal. I stopped myself from obsessing over her every move. I suppressed the thoughts that gnawed at me. In some twisted way, I even started to hope I was wrong. By the fifth month, everything seemed to be settling down. My doubts about Heather's fidelity had begun to fade. I hadn't seen anything suspicious on the cameras or through the GPS for months. But one afternoon, I decided to check the condom box again. Something inside me told me to take another look. Sure enough, when I opened it, my heart dropped. Another condom was missing. My suspicions flared up again. I knew what I had to do. I didn't hesitate for a second. I rushed to the camera footage, eager to find an answer, even if I wasn't sure I was ready for it. I started scrolling through hours of clips, feeling the weight of each second. It took longer than I expected to find anything, but when I did, I almost couldn't breathe. I watched as Heather brought a man into our bedroom. It was broad daylight, and I was at work, betraying me in the very space we'd shared our most intimate moments. The footage didn't leave much to the imagination. It was all there. The way he kissed her, how she responded. The way they moved around the room. Every part of it made my skin crawl. It wasn't an accident. It was planned. The emotional impact of that discovery was like nothing I had ever felt. I couldn't bring myself to look away from a screen, but each second felt like an eternity. I had to stop myself from going numb, from letting the shock take over. I composed myself, knowing the confrontation would come. I had to wait for Heather to come home. When Heather walked into the bedroom that day, I told her, "Come here, I want you to watch something." She was already looking at me like something's off. I was as calm as I could be, but inside, my chest was tight. She walks closer, and as soon as she sees it, I see her face change. Her eyes go wide, and she freezes as the video rolls. She tries to play it off. "It's not what it seems," she says, her voice shaky. I can't even tell you how many times she says it. Each time, she's just digging herself deeper, trying to claw her way out of a hole that's already way too deep. But I'm done with that. I don't need explanations anymore. I don't need her to tell me it was a mistake. I've been here before, and I'm not doing that again. I look at her and say, "No, Heather. It's exactly what it seems. I'm done." She's not ready for that. I can see it in her eyes. She steps back like she can't believe I've actually said it. She's crying, begging me to reconsider. "Please, Gary," she says, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake, just a one-time thing. Please don't do this." But I've heard that before. I can't let myself fall for it again. No, it wasn't just a mistake, Heather. I found the condoms 5 months ago. I didn't know what to think, so I decided to find out. I set up the cameras. I tracked your car. The look on her face when I told her that was like I'd just hit her with a ton of bricks. She's speechless, like she can't even process what I've said. The tears keep coming, but now there's fear behind her eyes. I know what you've been doing, I tell her. And now you need to pack your things and leave. You've got one choice, pack up or I send this video everywhere. She's shaking now, crying harder. Please, Gary, don't. It was a mistake, just a one-time thing. I swear. But it doesn't matter anymore. I've made up my mind. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. I can't lie, part of me wants to feel sorry for her, let her apologize, and pretend like nothing ever happened. But I know that's not going to work. She doesn't speak for a long time, but the look on her face says everything. She knows it's over. I watch her gather her things, slowly and without a word. She doesn't try to fight me anymore. She knows there's nothing left to say. The next day, I called my lawyer first thing in the morning. It was a decision that felt right in my gut, even though I hadn't fully processed the emotions yet. Divorce wasn't something I ever thought would be part of my life story, but I dialed the number of my lawyer to make it official, for my peace of mind, and for the freedom I could feel waiting on the other side. By the end of the week, the divorce agreement was on my table. Heather had already left by then. She packed up her things and moved out to stay with a friend who, in all honesty, probably didn't know the whole story. She tried to be the peacekeeper, the one who would try to bring us back together. But I knew deep down that there was no saving. The marriage was broken, and no amount of mediation or kind words could undo what had already been done. As Heather was staying with her friend, I couldn't help but wonder what exactly she had told her. What version of the story had she shared? Did she admit to everything? Did she tell her friend about the cameras, the tracker, the betrayal? Or did she try to paint herself as the victim in all this? I didn't ask. I didn't care to hear her side anymore. When her friend reached out to me, I asked point blank if Heather had been honest with her. The answer came quickly enough. Yes, she told me you caught her cheating and sent her away. I didn't know whether to be furious or just laugh at how easily everything had crumbled. Ask her for the rest of the story, I told the friend. It wasn't my job to tell the world what had happened. The divorce was finalized without much hassle. Heather signed the agreement, and we split the joint account fairly, I suppose, considering everything. The house was mine to keep. It was the least I could get out of the mess. I'd worked hard for it. Heather didn't contest anything. She took what was left and walked away, leaving me with the house and the peace I'd been longing for. But here's the thing, I didn't share the video. I wanted to give Heather some dignity, even if she didn't deserve it. Let her leave with some shred of pride, even if she had torn apart everything that should have mattered to us. As I sat back and thought about everything that had unfolded, I realized I was finally free. And Heather was free, too. She could live however she wanted now, without the constraints of a relationship she had already abandoned. But, in the end, it was at the cost of everything we had built together. The marriage was over, and though it stung, I knew I had made the right choice.